Hello, we're from Speak Life. We like to see all things through the lens of Jesus. My name is Glen.
And I am Nate.
And we're going to talk about Mr. Bates versus the post office. We've already had a video talking about 10 lessons that we can learn from the post office scandal. Mm-hmm. And for those who are unaware of the post office scandal, how would you catch people up, Nate?
I would say that the post office introduced a new accounting system, a computer that was kind of set up in all the little post offices around the land, and that this was corrupt and didn't work very well. And the worst thing was that they doubled down by convincing themselves that there was certainly no problem with the machine. It must have been the men and women, the postmasters and postmistresses who were using them that was causing all the problem. So some people's lives were utterly sort of ripped apart by this and being accused of all sorts of things. And over the years, various people have taken up their cause, most notably Mr. Bates, who was a postmaster in Llandudno, North Wales.
He was, and he was a stickler, and he never would sign the documents that said that I have a mismatch between cash in hand and what the system is telling me. And yes, he seems to have doggedly pursued after truth and was the founding member of the, what was it called? The Postmasters for Justice Alliance. Mm-hmm. And and I think I came across the story, really kind of came across my radar just 2 years ago, even though Horizon came in 1999. They started prosecuting people in the noughties. There was a big investigation in 2014, and lots of things came out at that stage, and BBC had a big documentary at that stage. But even so, it was sort of simmering away, and nobody really was talking about it that much until ITV does a drama over Christmas. And now there's like a 1 million strong petition that says Paula Vanel's, the ex-CEO, must return her CBE, and the British government is making all sorts of pledges to expedite the compensation that's going to be paid to these hundreds of postmasters. And so all of a sudden it's much more of a thing because of a drama. What does that teach us?
Yeah, well, I think you pointed out in your list of 10 things we can learn is the power of drama or the power of television. Because you can hear the facts and you can hear the news, and it sort of drones on, and it's all very kind of legal, and I don't understand very much about the British legal system at the best of times, and so trying to work out at what stage in the legal system has this thing got to, and how widespread is it, and what's the public spokesman saying about it. So at that stage, you know, people will have an interest and people were aware of it, but there is something about seeing these people on screen interacting in their home environments and, you know, trying to do the best they can, which makes it more vivid and plunges it into your imagination, puts it before your eyes in a way that is more compelling and more pressing and more urgent. Then, here's someone standing outside the Royal Courts of Justice saying, this is terrible. You know.
900 sub-postmasters. I don't even know what I don't know what my mind is supposed to of picture at that point.
And that's one of those things. I mean, there's lots and lots of TED Talks about this, the power of story, and we talk about it. Whereas you can use statistics. Yeah. But as soon as you tell a story, you've got people. Yeah. Because it's through a story that you're going to connect with people on an emotional level in a way that statistics sort of feel abstract. And statistics suggest that a solution can be found which is kind of statistical. Right. You know, we can change the metrics on this. Right. Whereas as soon as you're presented with a human being, you're not thinking, how do we change some metrics?
How do we solve that person?
We think, how do we comfort that person? Yeah. How do we, ensure that they get justice, that they're dealt with fairly and honourably and kindly? Yeah. Which I think, again, the TV show does such a brilliant job of. There's one scene in particular in episode 1 is it Joe?
Joe Hamilton.
Joe Hamilton,
Yep.
who's based in Gloucester somewhere, Gloucestershire.
Yeah.
There is a brilliant scene, and this is just great TV.
Mm.
There's a brilliant scene in which she has just put some baked goods, some buns, not sure what. She's put them on a shelf because her post office is also a kind of bakery cafe thing. And she's just chatting with a couple of the customers, and one of them says, "Oh, as soon as you're gone, all those will, will be snaffled up by us." So a little bit of kind of human interaction there. And then she looks across, and standing kind of in the queue for the post office is an elderly lady who's kind of looking in her bags and looking a bit flustered.
Yes.
Remember the scene?
Yes.
So she says, "Is everything all right, Diane?" She says, "I've lost it. I can't find my pension book. It's not here. I can't." And she walks over to her. She says, "You haven't got your pension book. Remember, I keep it in the drawer."
Yep.
Now, there are two things that I think are absolutely glorious about that. One is it demonstrates the ordinary human kindness and interaction that is happening around the world all the time, which has absolutely nothing to do with systems of management and institutional
efficiencies,
policy. It's just people being kind to each other.
Yeah.
And the second thing I love about it is that it's a brilliant piece of exposition because it shows you not just Joe, she is a sub-postmistress in this particular post office. It shows so much about her character, and it does that through the script in a really natural way. So you create a potentially completely fictional scenario, which an elderly lady cannot find her pension book. Okay, right? How are you going to communicate that to the audience? Well, you're going to communicate to the audience by showing an old lady sort of scuffling around going, "I don't know where it is, don't know where it is."
Right.
And then you're going to see Joe's looking at her.
Yeah.
She's looking concerned. She knows her name.
Yeah. Right.
And then you discover that this is a pretty standard situation. And so Joe has taken upon herself to take care of this lady's pension book because it might be lost if she has to look after herself. So huge amount of exposition and character. And
it's beautiful.
It's just brilliantly done. And that's what TV and film and literature can do. That so much of our kind of regular media is not able to produce.
What's that book on screenwriting called Save the Cat? Somebody write Save the Cat, which is about establish your hero doing an act of kindness in the first 30 seconds. We've learned, and so if you can go up into this is the Save the Cat moment, really. For Joe, and then it sets up beautifully that just a few minutes later, what we're going to see is Joe in front of a computer screen, a little bit baffled by the IT, on the phone to a helpline, which is absolutely faceless and no help whatsoever. And the kind of the cold indifference that she's met with on that phone line is I hadn't thought about it until you raised the previous scene. It's in such stark contrast, isn't it? Like, how is Horizon and the post office dealing with Joe when Joe is dealing so humanely with Diane? Yeah.
And you think that is and again, it's like, this is what, arguably a big theme of the program, the story is the little guy versus the managerial system machine, the technocrats, right?
Yeah.
But that scene shows you the little guy or little woman who is doing her best to look after a community of people. And you just think, that's the stuff you aren't going to orchestrate from the top down.
Yeah.
And it's the sort of stuff that gets banned by the top down because, hold on, there's a real risk here. That Diane is putting her financial security,
huge risk,
like like
she's a vulnerable adult.
We're very concerned about abuse, and so financial abuse is a real thing. And so, what on earth does Joe think she's doing?
Right.
This is against policy and all this sort of stuff. You think, no, actually, this is just a one person acting in a way that is kind and protecting and compassionate towards another, and And of course, she's the one, as you say, it's a save the cat moment. It elevates Joe in our eyes to say she's so nice. She's so kind.
Yes.
She's trying her best.
Yes. Yeah. And then that scene where she, is instructed by the helpline to just, click that button, and the error that was like £2,000 at the time suddenly becomes £4,000. And I have been aware of this story for years and years, but I'd never felt it until that moment. And it was such a kind of an every man, every woman moment. Like, who hasn't wrestled with IT? Who hasn't dealt with a helpline that's been anything but helpful? Who hasn't like made an error and you're there. You're in Joe's shoes. And I think this is what is behind. This is why you get 1 million signatures on a petition, because suddenly it's dramatized it for us.
Yeah, and it's personalized it because Joe is a human being, and that through the power of this kind of omnipresent lens that can follow Joe anywhere and show her most intimate reactions, we're drawn into Joe's dilemma and Joe's anxiety, so that later on, when Joe does a little bit of creative accountancy...
Yeah, we understand.
Well, of course, because if she doesn't do this, if she doesn't make this...
Yeah.
She shouldn't do it. She shouldn't do it, and she should be more like Mr. Bates. And he's really scrupulous, and and he's not going to sign off on accounts he knows aren't right. But like the empathetic kind of vision we have of Joe is huge.
Yeah, Monica Dolan did a brilliant job. I think there are some standout performances. Obviously, Alan Bates, played by I'm blanking on the name.
Toby Young.
Yeah. Toby Jones.
Toby Young
is the free speech guy.
Definitely.
He's the free speech
maybe
guy.
I don't know. Maybe this is one of those times when he would have gone into bat against people.
Toby Jones.
Toby Jones.
Monica Dolan. And the rest. Because there are some moments as well where the writing is just trying to process you through a whole bunch of information. And, like Toby Jones is outside some institution. And here we are at the Criminal Bar of Justice Institute. And you must be Frederick Engels.
And there is, that's a...
You must be Karl Marx.
My goodness me.
Railing against capitalism.
Stuff going on. And TV's got to do that, right? You've got to work out a way to do your exposition, so that you haven't got two characters saying, "So how long have we been brothers?" Like, you don't want that. You want it to be natural. And again, to go back to the scene with Diane in the post office, can't find a pension book, because presumably Diane is struggling with dementia, or she's just becoming forgetful. That provides us with an opportunity as the audience to hear a vital piece of dialogue as a character reminds another one. I mean, it's the classic thing. Whenever any kind of hotshot detective arrives at the crime scene, they are always met by a kind of an officer who, as they walk under the tape and like around the flashing lights, is going to explain everything that we've got, so that we, the audience, then pick up that information too. So it's fascinating to see how are they going to communicate some detail which is going to be essential, without just literally having a narrator say it or put the text on screen to say, we're now at this place. But you're right. In terms of it's really good TV. It's not awesome TV. There's a lot in terms of like the cinematography. At times feels as though it's not letting the script do its job in some places. There's one moment, I think, when Bob, he's like second sight investigator, so he's employed by the post office to go and do an investigation, and he comes to post office HQ to confront them about a guy called Lee Stapleton.
Yes.
Who is, what was his name? What was the actor's name?
Yeah, he's been in lots.
He was in like 2 pints of lager and a packet of crisps. That's what I originally remember him from. Anyway, and there's this really intense kind of, a great bit of dialogue, and the whole thing's just shot with 2 over the shoulder to get each character in. And you just think, you've got your script and your filming, and there's all sorts of reasons for that, but it feels as though they're not completely lined up. But,
There are other decisions that have to be made in order to tell a story in 4 episodes, and so various real-life characters are consolidated into a single character, like on screen, and whole rafts of the story have to be kind of left out. One thing that was interesting is that we did a video about this 2 years ago, and we were aware that ITV were going to make a drama. And I think you guessed at that time, was this going to be the Nick Wallace story, who was one of the journalists who was kind of breaking it? Would this be the foot in the door kind of spotlight journalist who's shining a light on the evils? And actually, we didn't get any journalists. Did that surprise you?
Well, we got there was a Computer Weekly interview, which sort of introduced the kind of media interest, and then you saw porn. Is it Vanells?
Vanells, not Venels.
We were saying Venels. There was that she's on a radio interview at some point where Horizon is never discussed, and Alan Bates is kind of on there. So you've got, certainly there is a media angle, but certainly as goes, who are the heroes of these? Well, you've got the hero postmaster, Mr. Bates, who is a stickler and won't sign. And proves his integrity at the lowest level, that his vindication might occur at the highest level. There's a kind of like obedience in the small things thing with him, which is kind of really powerful. We also had a hero MP, a Tory MP,
right?
Who was shown in a positive way. So it wasn't the journalist as hero story that I'd anticipated, but certainly thinking about these hero characters who champion the rights of the downtrodden or the overlooked or the mistreated, and that's a kind of shoe-in for kind of Christian application, as you sort of showed in your scripted video.
And we didn't get Tilda Swinton as Paula Vanells, which I thought was a missed opportunity, but perhaps the price tag was a little hefty for that.
Now there was a nice bit of cinematography. I should acknowledge it where it does go well, is that the first time we saw Paula Vanells, did you see what framing there was?
Was she at her desk?
She was at her desk. She was looking at a computer, but she was revealed in profile, which is sort of evocative of the stamp.
The Queen?
So there's a kind of a sense of it. Now, I probably would have played that up a little bit more. I would have done like a kind of match cut to a stamp, and then just like gone to Paula Vanells. Like, by the way, post office, guys.
Crash zoom, break through the fourth wall. Am I right?
Love the Queen. She's like a dark, evil queen. She's like the shadow queen of the post office. But I just thought that was an interesting one to do. So, again, how are you going to tell the story? What are you going to put in the script? How are you going to communicate things? And there are things that you can do which are nice with camera angles and stuff. And I'm pretty sure that Mr. and Mrs. Bates, whilst they might live in a very nice little cottage, is it really as picturesque as that?
And did they all save their conversations until they were out? On top of Cataridris to discuss things.
Yeah, there's some positive things about the show, but Paula Vanells, it would be really interesting to dig into. I mean, did you read? There was a Giles Fraser article,
right? Yes.
I didn't read the whole thing. I just saw some. I didn't read everything, but there were just some captions of it that were shared online, effectively looking at the fact that Paula Vanells, because at some stage she got ordained as a
non-stipendiary minister in the Church of England.
That she was therefore kind of representative of two great British establishments, the local church and the local post office. But then because she's operating at this executive level, is an example, and Giles Fraser's article on this did a great job, of the worst kind of managerialism,
right?
And technocracy, that ends up crushing the local because the national is the big thing. So.
And Fergus Butler Galley wrote about this a couple of years ago, where he said the very worst thing in all this is that these effects rarely proceed from actual malice. That is the rolling out of Horizon and the crushing of the little guy. It doesn't proceed from malice, but rather a blind devotion to hierarchical managerialism. So that's a lesson that a lot of people are learning from it, and the fact that Paula Vanel's was on this sort of leadership team that was teaching leadership skills to bishops. And if you become a bishop in the Church of England, you go through this thing, and all the people who were teaching others were like CEOs. It has not been a spiritual formation for the bishops. It's all been in this hierarchical managerialism. And she was even touted to be Bishop of London, which is like the number 3 job in the Church of England.
Because of her experience as
a CEO, turning around the post office, crushing the Joe Hamiltons of this world. I know. Let's make that woman a bishop. And she's never even been a vicar. She's never even had pastoral charge of a parish. And she was 3rd in line for the job. She was in the top 3 being interviewed for this role. That is a real indictment of how we think about church. That, okay, we've got a deficit. Well, post office had a deficit. Post office had a plan. Let's bring in efficiency savings and roll it out in this hierarchical managerialism. I know. Let's do the same in the Church of England, as though it's one more institution among many in the country. And that's a real indictment.
And removing people from the ordinary lives of average parishioners, or the further you get away from that, the easier it is for you to make these sorts of, unmalicious yet
benign, maybe, or
decisions,
at least innocent,
just sort of to say, well, okay, this is now, this person is a kind of statistic, and the scriptures never treat us in that way. In fact, I'm trying to think one of the occasions when people are kind of named or listed or counted. I mean, David numbering the mighty men, or is like
my reading this morning.
That's a kind of major problem. Now we might want to have lists of checklists of things, but being known by name is quite a crucial part, and knowing the voice of the shepherd, and the shepherd knows his sheep, and so the personhood and the personality and the kind of relational is so essential to what it means for us to be made in the image of God and to be Christian. And the organization of the church seems hell-bent on moving towards a systematic management of all the issues and challenges that it faces.
Yeah. And that's only going to become more of a pressure with technology, because of course in 1999 you can't be filling out your forms with paper and pen anymore, can you? You've got to bring in the new IT system, and so like technology is this huge pressure to treat every person as a one and a naught rather than as a name.
So the video that you had made about this with the list of top 10 reasons why it clicked, one of them is that this is a story that resonates with people. It feels like a sadly too familiar story.
Yeah.
What aspects of it do you think are there that really jive with how people feel?
We tend to like these dramas, and there's often a courtroom drama in which somebody is all at sea and there's a big bad corporation, and then suddenly somebody steps forward. One of my favourite films of all time is a little-known Australian comedy called The Castle, about a man whose house is about to be repossessed or taken by the airport, because they're going to expand the airport, and it's an allegory for Aboriginal land rights. And just as the white man came and stole indigenous communities' sort of land for mining purposes, and they have absolutely no hope, and they've got a terrible lawyer who it's the famous scene who, when he gets to the High Court in Canberra, he says, "It's unconstitutional, you can't do it." And the judge says, "Well, what particular part of the Constitution is this violating?" He says, it's the vibe. It's the vibe of the Constitution. So set up as this terrible, terrible lawyer. And then Laurie, the great QC, happens to be in the lobby and says, "I will take your case for free."
Okay.
And so the advocate steps forward, right? And in the name of the little guy and on his behalf, he turns out to be the greatest advocate ever and wins the day. And it's like you're punching the air by the end of it. And and so that's a kind of a comedy version of it. But there's so many dramas, and you think about Erin Brockovich or something, this just knocking on the door of the corporate, machine that's just grinding you in the gears. And we're all saying, surely there's justice. This is unjust. This is unjust. And when you get your day in court and the truth sets you free, it's like,
Yeah, and the idea that there is, so that Lee Stapleton's character is constantly saying, I just British justice. I'm going to trust in British justice.
Yes. I don't know why he says British at that point. Like, I don't think anyone in actual conversation, surely he would just say justice. But,
Well, no, because he's a token northerner, isn't he?
Okay.
So they are, very down to earth, and they're thinking about, being from the north, and that this is Britain.
This is Britain. This is where injustice should not happen.
Yeah, you should, if you're honest.
Yeah,
it should all be fine.
Yeah, right.
And that is a level of faith in that the world, that the nation is just.
Yeah,
and for a Christian, we want to say, have we got faith that the cosmos is just?
Yeah.
That, will the one who's been appointed judge the world with justice?
Yeah.
And will people be vindicated?
Yeah.
And there's just something about the simplicity of the courtroom drama. I mean, it'd be fascinating to know what percentage of television programs include court appearances, and what percentage of people ordinary people go to court on a day-to-day basis. Very, very few.
Yeah.
And yet, so there is a sense in which the television distorts reality because it presents you with the remarkable. It presents you with the extreme cases. It presents you with the properly dramatic. And most of life isn't that. So I remember the first time I went to the States, I was just convinced I would be involved in some kind of shootout. The police would have guns, have weapons drawn at some point in the next 2 weeks.
It's America.
Because most of the time, when I'm looking at things which are showing America, it's showing something like that. So there is a kind of a distortion to it. But because the Mr. Bates versus the Post Office has so much about it which is perfectly ordinary, it is so relatable. Because the vast majority of people, as you said, are a bit intimidated by technology, feel that, they're just trying to get along with their thing. They're quite locally oriented.
Yeah.
And here was a program that showed how people can be, ground up by the machine.
Right. The skint little people.
Calling for justice. Yeah.
Yeah. And there's a place, I forget which episode it's in, but as they go as the 555 claimants against the post office, Mr. Bates says to the Alliance, what are we after? And somebody says compensation. Yeah, but more than compensation.
Yeah.
Justice. Yeah, but more than justice. Yeah. Okay, what's at the top of the tree? Truth.
Yes, compensation. Yes, justice, but without the truth, we can't do either of those.
That's really interesting. That's, okay, we are after some kind of consolation in this life, and we need to be able to get by. And if Joe Hamilton has to remortgage the house in order to pay off the debt, she needs some money. Okay, so we need that level, but we need more than that. We need justice. But then I was just really interested why the writer wants to put, truth at the top of the tree. And I wonder whether justice can feel impersonal to the skint little people. And maybe you can tear down the Paul Vanels of this world, and that would be just and right. And maybe there's a fair compensation that happens, and maybe the convictions get overturned. But there's something about truth that is truth. Why is truth top of the tree? Is it because I am seen personally. I am known personally. My story is told.
I think that might be more characterization than it is kind of, the voice of the author sort of thing, the voice of the writer. So Alan Bates would not sign what he knew to be not true.
Yes.
And one of the terrifying things for the truth coming out is that the fact that you were creative with your accounting in order to avoid a worse fate starts to come out. Now, if it there is there's something about that truth which we do want truth, but how much truth? How much do you want this investigation to reveal? And I wonder whether other characters, and this is arguably where it's very, very well written, that if other characters had to stand up and give a rallying cry, they would have just stopped at justice.
Right.
And because it's him, he says, no, this is about the truth has to come out.
Yes.
And I just thought it was a curious.
Yeah.
Because I had the same thought, which is like, what do I want? Compensation. I do want money. But what justice? Yeah, good. There's a nice abstract noun that we can leave ourselves
Milkshakes for everyone is what I want.
And also free parking.
My iPhone battery is never what I wanted it to be. But
and that was the cast of characters did have that variety in them, and arguably that they just have that variety because not all sub postmasters and mistresses are the same. But you've got Joe, who's likely to comfort. I forget the name of the character.
Monica Dolan. Joe Hamilton.
No, the character who has been told not to Google.
Oh,
there's his wife's sort of condition or something, because she's gone through all sorts of things.
Is it Michael? No.
And she just says in the next scene, because the doctor says, just don't Google it when you get home. And then almost the next scene is Joe saying, like, you're not going to Google it. She's so down to earth.
Yeah. She's the most sympathetic,
and she's so relatable.
Yeah.
And you feel comfortable with her. And she's the one bringing the plates of sandwiches, but you want your stickler, you want your hero who's committed to truth
and the story to be told. Because you could think of justice as the righting of wrongs and the rebalancing of the scales, without the story being told.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is that here we have Mr. Bates versus the Post Office as the story that comes out, and there's something about the truth being known and people's story being told that is what we want. And as Christians, will there be compensation for the suffering of this world? Plenty. Will there be justice? There will be. But there'll be truth. There'll be stories told. Will be known. So like 1 Corinthians 13, for now we see only a reflection as in a mirror, then we shall see face to face. Now I know in part, then I shall know fully, even as I am fully known. And that's the cry of our hearts, especially if we feel powerless, we're the skint little people, we're ground down.
Yeah.
Or if we're a poor living else and we have not covered ourselves in glory, and we have doubled down on our own righteousness and been exposed, we need to kind of drop the act and look bad in the presence of love, is the opposite of what the post office tried to do. Yeah. It tried to look good in the presence of judgment. And actually where healing comes is look bad in the presence of love. And we've got a future of that when we shall know fully, even as we're fully known.
And there's, many people think, I'm a Paul of Fennells, or I'm a Alan Bates, or I'm a, Joe. I think many people are actually Diane. Yeah. There's a lot of us who are just standing in the queue at the post office and cannot find our pension book. And we need the support of people who know us. Yeah. Who are around us, who know the truth, and who are part of our story. And that's what's so great about this TV program. Not just that hopefully it will bring about an increase of justice, but... it will remind people that to be known and to be loved.
Yeah, we were made for that community of the afflicted that gathers around Mr. Bates. Well, there is a local church, and not all vicars like Paul of Annels. There was a good vicar who stood up for Joe Hamilton.
Yes.
In one of the episodes.
Yes.
So,
good vicar! Do send
There's
it.
that one. There is that one.
Can you find any good vicars?
Well, so that is some of our reaction to Mr. Bates versus the Post Office. What's yours? You can let us know in the comments. And look, if you want to do 321, this is our course that we love people to do. You can go to 321course.com. Sign up, binge it all in one go, or do it in 8 parts. There are different ways of discovering life according to Jesus. But why don't you hit like on this video, share it with some friends, and hit subscribe so that we can see you on the next one. But thanks so much for joining us. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.